Welcome to the Cynthia Nyamai Show. What does it take to be successful, celebrated all over the world? What does it take to be an entrepreneur, an industrialist, a billionaire? These are questions that I ask myself in the quest for life. And I have enjoyed sitting with people who are successful and learning from them, those who have gone ahead of me. And today, I will share with you my mentor. He is celebrated all over the world and has an interesting perspective on working hard, integrity, and what real power and success really means. That is coming up shortly. Thank you, Vimal Shah, for joining us today. This is going to be a different interview. I know over the years we talk about business and numbers, but today I want to find out the other side of you. So it's going to be quite interesting. Let's start with where did you grow up in Kenya?
Well, I was born in Nyeri, and that was my birthplace. And then I went to Nyeri Primary School for a few years.
Yes.
And then, of course, we had this whole thing about moving off from smaller towns to bigger towns. We came to Nairobi.
Yeah.
I educated myself in Nairobi, in Harwich Primary School and then Jamhuri High School. And then did my university at USIU.
Yes. So do you speak a little bit of Kikuyu?
I used to. I've slowly forgotten it. I speak Kenyan now.
Yeah, you're practicing less of it, so you probably have.
But I understand it, so I have a lot of friends who speak in Kikuyu.
Yes.
And I understand it, so.
Yes, yes. And then now you went to Nairobi. Moved to Nairobi, went to USIU.
When I was about 7 years old, that's when we moved to Nairobi.
Yeah, yeah. And then after USIU, is that when you immediately started your business, or did you intern? Did you first intern somewhere?
No, while at USIU, I went to American Life Insurance.
Yes.
And in the second, third year, I started selling life insurance.
Yeah.
Got into an agency and did all that stuff. And pretty soon realized that, you know what, you do prospecting and you go into meet 100 clients.
Yeah.
Out of that, 3 to 5% are positive and the rest are like, let's postpone the discussion. I don't want to talk about life insurance right now.
Yes.
And I really found out it's not for me.
Yeah.
So during that time itself, my father was running a clothing factory, and that's where I took my interest.
Yes.
I said, how do we take this further? What do we need to do with it?
Yeah.
And looked at the whole backward linkage. And the journey started then in university.
Yes. And what age were you when you had that discussion with your dad about expansion? And
this was when I was 18 and 19.
yes. And was he wondering, you're only 19, I've been doing this for a few more years, so you probably don't have the experience and the capacity to give me advice on how to expand?
No, he didn't.
Yeah.
On the contrary, he actually said, yeah, go ahead and do something.
Yeah.
And obviously started doing it. And he says, yeah, fine. Because when we were young in his clothing factory, we used to go there and come back and know the business. So we're entrenched into it in terms of, I think 5, 6 years, just go and see and find out what's happening.
Yes.
And that gives you your entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, try it. So he was very supportive.
Yeah, yeah. I think one of the things I've been observing Indian families and how they run their businesses, one of the advantages that I've seen is that their children during the holidays accompany them to their business and they get to understand what the business is all about. But did you, as you were growing up, did you feel like, yes, I want to become an entrepreneur and probably the same thing that my dad is doing?
I think it sort of evolved around some time, because initially it was more of, yeah, let's see what we can do. And you're getting this education, you're getting a degree, so you're going to look at it.
Yeah.
I tried insurance, right? And said, hang on, this is not for me.
Yeah.
So it was like a sort of a go, no-go situation onto what to do.
Yes.
And then, of course, being employed by somebody was not an option. And it was something that I wanted to do on my own.
Yeah.
Seeing him doing what he was doing, that inspired me. So look, do something on your own and see what you can do.
Yeah.
But the avenues were open. So it wasn't that you go into only one or two. It's just fine, do what you want to do.
Yeah.
So very liberal, but very supportive.
Yeah, I'm just thinking not many people at age 19 would be thinking about opening up an industry or a factory, and not even 19, even people in their 40s, 50s, that is still new in Kenya, manufacturing. What made you have such bold ideas at that age?
So it was crazy, right? Let me tell you, it was pretty crazy because at 19 and 20, during my university time here, since I was here, we also looked at the whole value chain of what my father was doing, garments, textiles, going backward into spinning, weaving, spinning, and then cotton farming. And I did a whole study while at university and looked at the whole value chain. In fact, in 1980, I remember we took some cotton seeds and stuff like that to say, fine, plant this. And went to farmers, held farmers' barazas, right, talking to them about agriculture. Because my father at one stage was a coffee farmer. And he always said agribusiness is what I wish to do and become big in that. And his ambition was always there. So it was like his legacy, his story coming through and say, fine, let's go make it happen. It was exciting because, you know, the full value chain going there. And looking at his business and see, where do we take this business next stage? Because now I've got a degree, right? So with that, you start saying, what should we do with it? And looking at it from backward integration, did a whole study on this, created a whole document. Got an accountant who actually verified all the figures, did the projections, and then very nicely went from bank to bank to say, here's a project. Let's look at this. But before that, we evaluated whether to go the cotton value chain, and from cotton you get two things. One is the lint, which is your fiber, and you get seeds which have oil in them, and if you crush the oil, get the oil out, you get animal feeds. So looking at both value chains, one was more fashion industry, and in the fashion industry you have a lot of dead stock, with blues working and reds not working. And if you make a lot of blue, you got dead stocks. So you sell them at very good prices initially. But if it doesn't sell, you got to get rid of it at any cost. And on the consumer industry, where you look at the oil side of crushing seeds and all that, that looked interesting because from crushing cotton seeds, you get the oil, you get the animal feeds, but from the oil you can get edible oil and you can get byproducts for which you can make soap. So looked at that value chain, charted it out, and looked at the concept of where should we play. We decided that this consumer industry, where demand was inelastic, number one, product was consistent. It wasn't like fashion. It was like consistent product, make it, and in mass market. That excited us, and then we dropped the whole idea of textiles and garments. Sold off the factory in 1981 and said, fine, forget it. We don't want to do that. And that's when we took this whole document that we made from bank to bank. So it was interesting. You go from bank to bank and they say, yeah, okay, young lad, looks good. Studied it, and then they asked me a question. What's your experience? I said, no experience. Have you ever done this before? No. Because it was the full value chain, going from seeds right up to crushing to soaps, oils. I just put the whole study together, you know, feeling ambitious and saying, fine, just go to them. It's coming around $50 to $60 million of financing at that time. So went around and said, yeah, banks, what are banks for, right?
Just hold on a little. How is a 19-year-old preparing for a presentation like that to a bank and that kind of money? How did you prepare for all that? Did you stand in front of your family and practice? And
so it was only 3 people, right? My brother, myself, and my father. We worked this thing out, and we had a few friends. Apart from that, we had an accountant's firm, right? Accountancy firm who helped us with all the figure work. And we iterated it quite many times. Put down details, put up P&Ls, balance sheets, cash flows, a whole lot. And then go to the banks. Because we say, hey, you know, what's the job of a bank? They're into lend money. So go from bank to bank. And I remember all the banks. You know, I remember Barclays also went to this guy, and he says, yo, young lad, this looks good. Same questions. Ever done this before, this and that? And how much capital do you have? I said, none. Don't have capital. But that's why you're going to be there. You give us the capital. And it was so obvious that they're not going to fund us. First and foremost, there's a risk of execution. There's risk of you've never done it before. And one question that the Barclays guy asked me very strongly is, what do you think of Unilever? They might kill you. And heard that.
Which was a possibility.
Because that was East African Industries at that time. And Kimbo and all these brand names were solid here. And they had a legacy, right? we were just starters.
Yeah.
But the can-do attitude was there to say,
Yeah.
fine, we want to do something.
Yeah. And
So-
after talking to all these banks and everyone was saying no, how many times did they say no to you? How many times
For
did you
3
hear no?
years, 3.5 years, 3.5 years, go around, they want to see everything, they check it all out and then take from manager to manager and say, yeah, looks interesting, but, and the buts are, never done it before,
Yes.
don't have the capital and execution risk.
Most people after 6 months would have given up. So 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, what kept you going?
So during this period,
Yes.
right, my father had a clothing factory which we closed down, but he had some shops,
Yes.
Jollibird, and a few shops that we were running. We was
Yeah.
managing them, right? And then we said, okay, let's see if we can manage those and make them happen. That was running, but that was a retail store, right? But that wasn't as exciting as what we did.
Yes.
So we started something called Ken Cafe. Ken Cafe was the first instant coffee that we brought in under our own brand name.
Yes.
And all we did is went to one of the guys here, True Foods, and they packed it for us and we started marketing it.
Yeah.
And did a bit of all that while these studies were being done.
Yeah.
So getting into that step. But ultimately, obviously, everything comes down to, it came to IFC.
Yeah.
Went to IFC and they said, look, here, look at this because you're...
Before we go to IFC, there's a question I'm just asking myself, and I'm wondering, when you talk to banks, and of course, people who are much more, have much more experience, and everyone is still telling you, no, this can't work, this has never worked before, we've never had a 19-year-old come with no experience and run a business like this successfully. What made you think that? Because a lot of times you'll probably think, okay, they're older, they have more experience, maybe they're right, maybe they know something I don't know. What kept you going and feeling like your idea is still a good idea?
So the beauty, Cynthia, is this, that they didn't tell us it won't work.
Yes.
They just said that you are too young.
Yes.
And they obviously didn't say that, but they said no
Yeah.
experience,
Yes.
you've never done it before, so how do you go against a big giant,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they never said it won't work. They said, good idea,
Yeah.
good smart
Okay,
thing, but
so that kept
execution
you going.
risk.
Yes,
Yeah?
yes.
And we were convinced because it's so simple to do in terms of mindset.
Yes.
I said, fine, why not do it? And that time, you know, you're ambitious, you're from university, you got, like our university students have, they can do anything.
Yes.
And that can-do attitude persisted. My dad was also supportive,
Yeah.
but he didn't have the capital.
Yes.
So myself, my brother and my father, all three together said, let's just do it.
Yeah.
And the IFC guys actually told us very clearly, look, stop here. If you want to do this, you need 40% equity.
Yes.
We didn't have that.
Yeah.
So he said, if you don't have that, then start small and one step at a time. Either start from the top, go downwards, or backward integrate. And that's what we started doing.
Yeah.
So in 1985, we put up our first soap plant, started from the back end, and then we went into backward integration. Until today, 36 years hence, we're still doing it.
Yes.
The full value chain, although we've done it all into farming in the whole lot, but we're still doing it across Africa.
Yes. I want to find out how the business has evolved and also a little bit about your personal life. I hadn't prepared you for that because I want to surprise you a little bit with some of the questions I have for you. That and more coming up shortly. Welcome back. We were talking to business mogul entrepreneur Vimal Shah, and we found out a little bit about his background and how his business started. I like the story about you talking to different banks and IFC because a lot of times when people see the end result, you're celebrated all over the world, all over Africa, read about you even in Forbes, people think it's an easy thing, that, you know, probably starting a business is something that anyone can do. It takes just connections, and that's a word that's used a lot in Kenya. But yours is actually a story of blood, sweat, talking to all those banks. And then you talk now to IFC, who seem a little bit interested, but they say 40%. So what was the conversation after that? How did it go?
So I think the advice was very right. And the
Yes.
advice was that start small, aim big,
Yes.
but keep at it and let each business support the other. Because you're not going to get this whole thing done in one shot.
Yes.
That's where the execution risk was much higher. So we followed that advice. We
Yes.
said, let's start small. Started with a small soap factory, which was, 1 ton per day, 20 tons per day, 1 ton per hour,
Yes.
20 tons per day. So that gives you about 4,000 or 5,000 tons per annum. And started with that in Nairobi,
Yes.
in one of the godowns that my father had, and put it up in a nice way. The only thing is we executed differently. We executed as if we were going to go big.
Yes.
And therefore we went bulking, we went a different route, and that gave us the edge.
Yes.
So quality with the price advantage was the best point we put up. But then of course, it's not easy because you start doing new soaps, right?
Yes.
We made them into white and different soaps. We go to the market and everybody, hey, they've got this blue label called
Yes.
EAI distributor.
Yes.
So you go to them and say, please sell our soap. No, we're EAI distributors.
Yes.
We can't buy your product. We can't keep it.
Yes.
What do you do? So since
So
my
what does EAI distribute?
East African Industries was the Unilever.
Yes.
It was called Unilever today. Was
Yeah.
called East African Industries
Okay.
then. They had all the household products and fats and oils and
Yes.
soaps and the whole gamut. So based on that, these distributors would not stock our products.
Yes.
Therefore, now how do you distribute? If you don't have it available, you have a problem. So since my father had this garment industry before and he had some contacts, that was important.
Yeah.
Credibility and contacts.
Yes.
Went around all those guys who were selling garments. We said, look, try and sell some soap. They said, it's not our line. Stock it. So we had to give them consignment stocks.
Yes.
Stock it, keep it available, and tell people that, look, soap is available here.
Yeah.
So we did that, consignment stocks. We had to put that together. Then once the product is all over, then it's not selling, it's not taking off because the consumer is not buying.
Yes.
So we had to get a lot of that done, activation.
It's a new product, so yeah.
So that's when we learned marketing and
exactly,
selling
yeah.
and getting it to the consumers' minds. So that's when the whole consumer system comes in.
Yeah.
And we differentiated that way. I remember so many things that time because the Kenyan, Ugandan, Tanzanian borders were closed.
Yes.
Remember, there was embargoes, so you couldn't go across. But I remember at one stage we took about 6 lorries, huge 40-foot trucks, to the Namanga border
Yes.
and some to Taveta border, and came back with cash.
Yes.
At one stage, my brother and myself actually got into canters
Yes.
and started doing van selling ourselves.
Yes.
Because it's just not easy. So that startup was interesting, but I
Yeah.
think the learning was important. The learning was that you need to get to the consumers, you need to get in consumers' minds and make sure that happens. Otherwise, if you sit and say, I've got a product, it'll sell on its own, it doesn't.
Yes. And coming back from Namanga with cash must have told you there is opportunity outside
It
Kenya.
was sweat. It's like, hey, what's happening here? But the opportunity it showed us was amazing.
Yes.
That there's so much more possible.
Yes.
And I think it just opened so many more avenues.
Yeah.
And I think once you do a good product, you do quality with the price advantage, and
Yeah.
we had that price advantage there.
Yeah.
It's with that success and really getting into the market in 3 years' time, with that vision always there to say this is just step 1.
Yes.
Step 2 is go back into oil.
Yes.
And that's what we did. So
Yeah.
we started moving backwards into the value chain, and that was always there.
Yes. Being young and I'm thinking about it because also for me I started my business really young. You enjoy the business, you're passionate, but now there are personal disciplines that have to come in. I think one of the things no one taught me was how to handle money when the money comes streaming in. The one time that I was excited is when I saw my bank finally had 1 million shillings. That was exciting. For you, when did you feel like, wow, I have made lots of money and my life is about to change?
So that feeling never came up because
Yes.
the reason was our vision was long term. It was to plow back all the time.
Yes.
So yes, we made our million.
Yeah.
We made our 2nd million, and
Yes.
it came, but it was all like it's not enough for the vision. It's not enough for the vision. So we kept on plowing back. We were never harvesting.
Yes.
So always planting.
There's no time you splurged a little bit?
No.
Really?
No.
Yes.
It wasn't there because your mission is like, I want to get into the ultimate in value chain. And that was when it started happening. So
Yes.
it's not that lavishness and say, fine, let's go spend it and do all that stuff.
Yeah.
Obviously, we could get what we wanted,
Yes.
do what we wanted to do,
Yeah.
but it's not like
But that vision kept you disciplined.
So there's always this whole feeling of not good enough.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, psychiatrists will tell you this, that not good enough feeling gives you, it's either a driver or it puts you to depression.
Yes, yeah.
And then we went into that and really kept on going.
And where do you find the balance of, yes, it's at least you've done something so that you don't get depressed and keep on pushing yourself and never feel like you're doing enough?
So that's a very important point, right?
Yeah.
What you do, you must enjoy doing it. You must have fun doing it. It never, and still today I can say this, it never became a bother.
Yes.
That this is a bother. It's not a have to anymore. It's a wish to. And therefore we kept on. And we're still keeping on because that's still a wish to. The minute your business or whatever you do becomes a bother and you're really frustrated, you're going to go there without a wish.
Yes.
That's important. So that's something that we always had fun doing it.
Yeah.
And because the vision was long-term, go really into the full value chain, it just started off doing well.
Yes, yes. And what has your experience been in expanding to different countries?
So it came to a stage where in Kenya, we'd done the whole hog with going back into oils, going back into, we bought over the Elianto brands.
Yeah.
And we did the whole edible oil crushing and all that stuff. So we went into that and we got farmers, smallholder farmers. So that's when we started saying, okay, now if we want to do the plantation as we had planned earlier, Kenya was not a good place for plantations, for farming, because Kenya is still much more smallholder farms and you couldn't do large scale farming. So that's when the whole opportunity we looked at and did some research. Got some World Bank guys, did us research in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, and including Zanzibar, and looked at where can we go backward into all this. And that time in 1997, I remember, we got a document from Uganda saying they were tendering for a oil palm project in Bundibugyo in Uganda and in Kalangala Island.
Yes.
So we went bidding for it. So we had to do the research, put it together and said oil palm plantation.
Yes.
1,000 hectares nuclear plant and the rest was smallholders. So 5,000 hectares of smallholders.
Yes.
We bid for it, did the whole gamut, and really forayed into that in Uganda. We moved into Tanzania, and that's when we grew our vision.
Yeah.
And our vision came live then, in the year 2000.
Wow. And was that the point where you felt like, yes, we're eventually getting to the big dream that I had?
So this is the thing, right? It's me and my brother and my father, 3 people. Now you don't have any more manpower. So you say, hang on, if I want to do all this, I will need to corporatize. So that was an important point, number one. Number 2 is family-owned, family-run businesses can only go to a certain level.
That's true.
So we'll have to look at this and going beyond that.
Yes.
Now to corporatize that, you'll have to have management.
Yeah.
So the other thing that we found out was, what does a multinational have that we don't have?
Yeah.
And what do we have that they don't have? And we actually did a whole charting of this. And it came out that we have a lot of strengths of moving faster, getting things decided quickly, and moving on the ground.
Yes.
And it's called Gemba knowledge.
Yes.
So we knew the know-how of the locals.
Yeah.
Plus we can take decisions. But they have a corporate, they have know-how,
Oh, yes.
they have knowledge globally,
Yes.
they know what the techniques are, and they've done
Yes.
it before.
Yeah.
So they had that management bandwidth. So we thought that time we got to build that, and we started building that.
Yes.
So it's not like me and mine. It's
Yeah.
like, hey, we got to hire people, get things done, and employ people. So that's how we did our Uganda, Tanzania projects. Employ people, run governance.
Yeah.
We learned the whole gamut of corporatization.
Yeah.
And that was important because otherwise you can stay where you are and you keep driving your car
Exactly.
and you can't go into many more.
Yes, yes. Talking about family-run business, how challenging or interesting is it running a business with your father, and you still have to maintain a father-son relationship with your brother? How have you been able to keep that relationship?
So for a lot of people, it's never easy.
Yes.
It's difficult. But for us, it was easy because my dad said, first and foremost, here in the business, you're not my son and I'm not your father. We're partners. We work together, you can bang the table, you can argue, whatever, but ultimately we'll still be united in whatever we do. So it's not like you have to succumb and say, oh, mzee amesema, you got to do it that way. No, it was open. So it became like a partnership. So 3 of us did all that, put together and say, fine, get it done. And his spirit was so strong that, look, go out and do it. And he told us openly, if you make a mistake, don't worry. You lose some money, don't worry. One thing you do not lose is your credibility. That's one thing you got to maintain, and that's what we've kept on
Yeah.
throughout that time.
Yes.
And really, that vision of can do, come what may, because he'd had many ups and downs in his life.
Yes.
It happens.
Yeah.
And he told us, look, if it comes down, you're always gonna pick yourself up and make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that attitude, that initiative helped us.
Yeah.
And then again, we were enjoying what we were doing, so it was like together.
Yeah.
But in the family, we had consensus. We never fought or my brother is like, he handles today, I handle tomorrow.
Yes.
So he's like a introvert. He tells me, you go and do the public figuring.
Yeah.
So we're not competing. He's not competing for space with me.
Yes.
And I'm not competing with him.
Yeah.
So that way we opened up well. And therefore we fitted very well as a fist.
Yes.
And we could do things.
Yes. In family businesses, how is transition handled, where a lot of times our parents have been the leaders, but with age catching up and they can't do so much? How do you transition and let now the children take over?
So this is a very big issue, and I talk to a lot of people and mentor people in family businesses where there's a passing the baton is a big problem for people.
Yeah.
So if you see a relay, right, 4x400, you're passing the baton, you just don't throw it. You take the baton, you hold it firm, but you let the other person hold it.
Yeah.
And when they're holding it firm, you then let go. Most people have a problem in letting go.
Yeah.
And I still want to hold it, but you're holding it and you can't run with it.
Yeah.
So the next player cannot run. And therefore you've got to say, okay, here, confident, you're holding it well, take it forward.
Yes.
That itself is an art.
Yes.
Now, if the patriarch of the family says, no, I can't let go,
Yeah.
even if I'm 80, 90, my dad's 90 now,
Yeah.
and they don't let go, then you've got problems. And that's where the whole problem in family-owned businesses, family-owned, family-run businesses.
Yes. 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 And do you sometimes feel like you also need to now mentor and begin to give the baton to other people? I'm asking this because I haven't seen you in the limelight and in media for the last probably 4 years as much as before. So I've been wondering, are you letting go or what exactly is going on?
So it's part of life, right? In the
Yes.
life phases, right? I'm 60 now.
Yeah.
And when you get to that point, you start saying, okay, been there, done that, passed the baton. And right now, it's more of creating more and more leaders.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So been there, KM, KEPSA, the whole bodies, social bodies, lots of organizations. And now it's like making sure that people can run with it,
Yeah.
forming more leaders. And that's what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
And when people said, oh, from CEO, I've stepped down, right? It was stepping up to be chairman, but then more of a coach and a mentor rather than an operator.
Yes.
So I don't get into operations anymore. So my brother's son, he's joined us and he's running that, and we've got other people staff running it. So we don't want to stay in that whole thing of me and mine, I got to run it.
Yes.
So empowerment happens.
Yes.
And then you make mistakes too. You get a lot of people who are not able and capable. But you know what, as an entrepreneur, you will never get somebody as good as you.
Yes.
Because you've started off and done it everything. You probably need 3 people so that they handle things differently. But that's what you got to give.
Yeah.
So letting go is a big issue. And I've seen so many of our own families here.
Yeah.
They don't let go and then they say, I'm the only guy.
Yeah.
And supposing you pass on,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's left to sort of crumble.
Yes. But there was a time I remember a few years ago, you were trending on social media and there were scandalous stories. How do you handle, and I remember we spoke then and you were so calm, but how do you handle scandals and what did you learn from that experience?
I think lots of learning, lots of learning, and I can say this openly without any fear. There was a smear campaign running against me.
Yes.
And because of one of our partners didn't want us to sort of go ahead and they wanted us to sell off. And they ran a smear campaign here in Kenya, right? Big real estate project and all that stuff. I don't want to name names, but ultimately it went into smear campaign.
Yeah.
And we were like angry and frustrated and said, what do we do about this?
Yeah.
And my lawyer said one thing. He says, hang on. Does that affect you? I said, yes, it does. How does it affect you?
Yeah.
Right? Is the truth the truth? If what he asked me is, look, are you a man? I said, yes, I am. He said, what if 10 people go online and say, you're not
You're
a
a
man, you're a
woman.
woman, right? And I said, yeah, I laugh it off.
Yes.
He says, what if I get 100 people
Yes.
or 1,000 people doing the same and saying, you're a woman?
Yes.
I said, I'll check, but hang on. I'm sure that I'm okay, so I won't
Yes.
really make, it doesn't affect me.
Yes.
And he says, be that way. Because these things happen.
Yeah.
And that doesn't change the truth.
Yeah.
So that was a serious learning to say, hang on, you need to become a bit thick-skinned about all the
Yes.
negative news, as long as your conscience is clear.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he said clearly, if your conscience is clear, stay put, you don't have a problem.
Yes.
Until today, we don't have that issue because it's all on the media, right? People put it on the media, and then it dies off because people know who you really are.
Yes.
And what he said to us was, continue doing what you're doing. If you know you're doing the right thing, do not stop.
Yes.
And that really helped.
Yeah, but were you surprised that business can have that kind of drama and someone can go out of their way to take you down?
I can tell you one thing, serious learning. And that learning helped me so much that I've had probably 10 more people who've gone in the same boat, right? Some guy, a very big magnate in UK, had the same problem, and he consulted me. He says, how did you handle this? Because this is mafioso. This is the Russian style of doing things and saying, fine, take people out.
Yeah.
And you don't succumb to that. So a lot of learning in that.
Yeah.
And I think the most important thing is, if you know that you're a soul, you're on planet Earth, and this is all material, it won't affect you.
Yes.
Your conscience must be clear. When your conscience is clear, you don't have to go and justify to people that, oh, it's not that, it's really this. And he said, don't react, because they want you to react.
Yeah.
They want to create a story.
Yeah.
And the other thing about trending is, you trend for a few hours, and then they want a next story.
Yes.
They want a next
Someone
story.
else is trending.
So this is all that's happening. And many people here in Kenya have had the same problem.
Yes.
And we have some bloggers here who make it a business
Yes.
that they actually make sure they pick on you.
Yeah, yeah.
And of course, there's an extortion racket going on too.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
But that's a business for them.
Yeah.
So that's how you got to learn how to tackle this. So I just think that the learning is important.
Yeah.
And I can share it with anybody who wants to
Yes.
learn from it.
Yes. Recently, you were speaking at an event, and I remember people were chatting and saying, "Oh, it's Vimal Shah." They said, "Oh, he's very wealthy and down to earth." So I have two questions to ask about that statement. First, the very wealthy. We've seen various stories about your wealth, how much you're worth. How much exactly are you worth?
I'm a soul on planet Earth. I'm worth as much as somebody can tell me I am. What I am, I am.
Yes.
What I have may be different, right? That figure can go up and down.
That's true.
So it doesn't matter. To me, that really doesn't matter.
So when people say your business and you are worth billions of shillings, of Kenya shillings, is there some truth to that?
I would have to check with my accountants.
But anyway, so I'm going to assume that.
But I don't think. Just that's a very interesting thing, Cynthia.
Yes.
If you count yourself based on what you've got as wealthy or not wealthy, I'd rather say, look at your character, look at your standing in society, and look at who you really are, and then count yourself. Rather than saying my wealth is this much money, because that can go away.
That's
money, we are all trustees, right? It comes and goes through us.
Yeah.
So why count yourself and say, fine, I'm rich?
That's a good way of looking at money. We are trustees.
We are trustees.
Yes. And I guess that explains why, again, they were saying you are so down to earth. And I've experienced that when I was a really young journalist. I didn't even have a name then, but you mentored me. And a lot of times I'd ask myself, why would he take time with someone like me? And you've done that for so many people. Why is that important for you? And you're able to relate. I think the thing for me was you're able to relate with people like me and other people who that day were saying that you're so down to earth. What makes it easy for you to relate and also teach people or mentor them?
The beauty of this is that I see the energy in them. I see people as souls, right?
Yes,
the energy in them is amazing.
Yeah.
Number two is that I see myself in them because I've been there, right? Where I'm stuck with something, I don't know what to do, and you know, I'm trying to figure something out and I can't get it. I want to help them. That's what I do. I mean, there's so many youngsters you can talk to and, you know, get them out of the system. But it's not to say, here's money and take it away and do that.
Yes.
It's about how to get out of the situation, what to do with it, and how to deal with it.
Yes.
I love that.
Yes.
I think that's something that's my passion. And as I go into less and less business and more other things,
Yes.
I think I'd love to do that.
Yes. I'm a little bit curious. What do you do? I'll ask about your personal life, but what do you do during your free time? What are some of the things that you enjoy? Because I don't see you out a lot. So what do you enjoy doing?
So, you know, this person is not an outgoing
Yes.
extrovert, as a party animal or whatever. I'm a teetotaler. I
Yes.
don't. I'm
Yeah.
a vegetarian.
Yes.
I don't smoke, and party is not my in thing, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, I could be reserved, and I love my me time,
Yes.
which I get rare moments for, and I love to talk to people, to mentor people,
Yeah.
to read, right? I love singing, but not in public.
Yeah.
But overall, I think it's just that I value my me time. I think it's just...
I'm tempted to ask you to sing one line.
Well, I can sing one line straight away, right? The song that comes right now is
Yes.
Que sera, sera, right?
Go on.
Que sera, sera, whatever will be, will be. The future's not ours to see. Que sera, sera, what will be, will be.
Will be.
So I believe that there's nothing like destiny fixed for you.
Yes.
On planet Earth,
That's true.
we need to make the effort to get that destiny done.
Yes.
If we don't make the effort and just sit and say, oh, please, somebody up there, help me. God helps those who help themselves.
Yes.
And therefore, you've got to do the effort. You've got to make the effort. If you do it with a clear conscience, enjoy the journey. Why do other people say, once I get to 70, when I retire, I will enjoy life? I say enjoy every day.
Exactly.
Why not enjoy what you're doing
all
the time? And that's where the big mistake is made by a lot of people. Say, let me slog it for 50 years, 30 years, 40 years, and thereafter I'll have a good time.
Yeah.
You're postponing.
Yeah.
So stop postponing and enjoy every single day on planet Earth.
Yes. Are you going to write a book anytime soon? This is so much wisdom. I wish we could do this for 2 hours.
I've been told by a lot of people,
Yes.
when are you writing your book?
Yes.
So the problem with me is I'm still postponing it and I haven't started it. And excuse that I give to people is that, look, I'm still writing the chapters,
Yes.
and therefore the book writing will come.
Yeah.
But yeah, soon, I think soon.
I think there's a lot of lessons that the young people can learn from you. And I have to say, I've learned so much from you from, I think, my early 20s. But you can't speak to everyone and spend as much time with them. So a book would really help. And I think a book from you, because of the experience you have in the different African countries, would be a book that a lot of people all over Africa would be able to relate to. And as we close the show, I'd like to just ask you for advice for any young person who's looking at you right now and wondering, with COVID and all the challenges that we are going through, how can I make it in life and live a legacy on earth?
I think we're in an exciting time. COVID has come, and COVID's going to be with us permanently. It'll be like another flu, right? So flus come and go. But it's such an exciting time because right now you've got digital awareness. You're not unlevel. Somebody from the States or Europe or Africa is not uneven. The level playing field is there. Number two, you've got digital awareness, you've got knowledge, you've got everything available to you. And the opportunities that's opened up is plentiful. Who knew that you could work from home, right? We had to go to an office, to a factory. Now you can work from home. You can work from a device from wherever you are. And that's opened up so many new avenues. What's crucial and important is not get fixated that I have this degree and therefore I can only do this subject. I can't do any other subjects. We can repurpose ourselves when we want to as the times go, right? So rather than get drowned by a tsunami, surf the tsunami. Be on top of it, and really, this is an amazing time. I think the world's gonna change. There's no more of big man, small man syndrome.
True.
There's no big company. In fact, small disruptors, you can see that happening already.
Yes.
Small time disruptors with an idea and a concept and execution ability are doing 10 times more than all those large companies. Look at the big companies in the world that were there in the stock market 50 years ago, 30 years ago. They were all bricks and mortar. Look at them today. You've got your Googles and Apples. They've only got this software, right?
Yes.
And people. And putting that together really, in Africa, I think if you're healthy today, if you got 2 eyes, 2 legs and 2 arms working, and you got a brain that's working, amazing times.
Yes.
But look for opportunities and repurpose yourselves quickly. The strong thing now is to unlearn as fast as you learn.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've learned something, don't sit on it and say, oh, I've got a big ego. Relearn.
Yes.
And keep learning. It's lifelong learning all the time.
Yes.
So do not come back and say, I got a Harvard degree in 1965 and therefore I'm still valid. In my opinion, irrelevant.
Yes.
And therefore, it doesn't matter which school you went to. It doesn't matter where you studied. It matters of what you execute and what you get done.
Yes.
Look at the digital photography. Look at what happens today. Images here in the wildlife, right? I know of people who've got images in the wildlife and taking them good shots, selling them for $10, $20, $30, $40,000 each shot.
Yes.
Now, it's available. So that's ample opportunity. But what we've got to do is the can-do attitude and the spotting of opportunity at the right moment. And really, internet and the way it's going, electric cars, solar, renewables, climate change,
Yes.
there's going to be new industries altogether. And we've got to get onto that bandwagon to say, fine, let's start afresh.
Yeah.
There's nothing stopping you, Cynthia, sitting in Nairobi, being as good as somebody in Silicon Valley.
That's true.
What don't you have? So let's put our minds to work, and that's what's important.
Thank you so much, Vimal Shah, for joining us today.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Well, you had it from Vimal Shah, and I think one thing, I keep on learning. Every time I speak to him, I keep on learning. But one of the things I'm taking from his story is that we all face challenges. What is important is that we do not spend too much time thinking about the challenges and the problems that we are facing. Perhaps the challenge is an opportunity for you to repurpose. See you next week.